Hello, everybody. Welcome. Um, Hope everybody is enjoying our little spell of good weather, and y'all get to see my surgery I had, which was a couple of days ago. Um, Forgot to bring the cord, so I'm going to bring it with me. So everything's going well. I'm able to walk and move around, which is good. And okay, here's the cord I was missing. So we're going to get some of the, as we enter into the end of adolescence and growing old, these are some of the things that go on. You have kids, you have search from Paris Hilton. I know some of you guys are talking about the difference between trauma and poverty and trauma when you're rich. There's a lot of differences and a lot of things that are very same. So we as social workers diagnose it often with if there's like a recurring flashback. And I know some of you have chosen to give poverty as your big paper. And some of you have chosen trauma as the paper. So with poverty and trauma, a lot of things can come up. It's amazing how stuff appears when you're, it seems that everything will be okay if you have lots of money, but that's not always the case. So that's one of the things that come up that the book kind of covers well. I know when we left off here, we were in this part of the PowerPoint talking about teen pregnancy and other things as a social worker. As for Chapter 7 covers. From the adolescent pregnancy to sex education to things that come up that challenge you as an adult. So one of them here is the sex education as we finished up with the adolescent pregnancy. Some of the things that are bad for the infant is that short-term low birth weight. There's higher infant mortality. And then with sex education, the prevention of adolescent pregnancy is one of the big things that we've pushed in America for, 20 to 40 years. It's gotten better. It's actually, we mentioned teen pregnancy is down over the past 20 years. That could possibly be because the abortion rate has gone up. Hopefully it's just because the sex ed and sex education has gotten better. It says here that abstinence-only programs fail to educate sexually active students about responsibility. So that's one of the complaints the author of this book has is if you just give abstinence-only program, you actually do need a sex education that breaks it down. And the last slide in adolescence, and this is where you saw that in the Paris Hilton movie, which I was going to finish up with some of that today, alcohol and drug use. So the majority of high school students, and that's 64%, and you guys can talk about this in your discussion or not, whether or not it's true. The majority report having consumed alcohol. That's almost 2/3. Drinking is decreasing. Binge drinking decreasing. So it's about 17% for 12th graders. So about 2/3 have tried and experimented with alcohol. 3 factors that they differentiated problem drinkers from other adolescents. And that's where you get into Jessor's problem theory. So the personal qualities. The big one is if you have a history of alcoholism in your family, where there you'll see once you start, you can't stop drinking, where it's like 12 or more. Also, your social environment and friends you hang out with. Sometimes you could be hanging out in a rub off, and also other patterns of behavior. If there is drugs and things that get in there, or the neighborhood, like with Paris Hilton, she was in New York, so that's what had come up. Um, and the effective intervention programs, they mentioned DARE, if you remember those as kids growing up. So DARE does not have a sustained effect. So DARE, to keep kids off drugs in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, it kind of works then and then stops by high school. They said the effective prevention is actually strengthening protective factors while reducing risk factors that increase vulnerability to drug use. So that's something that had come up. And one of the things to consider, because in Ohio, at least right now, we have a opioid epidemic. Along with the pandemic going on, there's the opioid epidemic, and you'll see challenges like that. So wanted to creep on into the last stuff that we have.
Easy to take for granted, like getting away from the kids for grown-up time, or getting away from the grown-up
the next several months. Well, we have March is ending today, April, and you guys should be done by May. So getting you to start thinking about your final paper, that's a big one. And I know some of you are doing that on your final paper, on the same thing as your PowerPoint will be on that you're presenting to the class. So make sure to get those in. I look forward to having some in person. I know it can be scary and we kind of avoid it. But, put yourself out there. So also, making sure you're registered. Getting with your advisor if you need my help with registering. I am a social work professor. You do it on your own. So the key is making sure you fill out this sheet, which I've sent over. I can send it to you again so that you're on track and you're on time for everything. That's a big part of it, because now that they have you all handle your own business, that's what would come up. And also, I was going to open a lot of these for your next several discussions. So making sure you're on your discussion board. Let's see if I can get this going. So this is for the next discussion, which won't be due until about a week and a half from now, but I wanted you guys to get into some of these resources and watching some of these videos about grandparents reaching out to children remotely, tips for grandparents, your thoughts about folks during this pandemic as it supposedly winds down, and also still have people struggling from it. There's still a lot of people suffering, but this gives a lot of resources for the developmental side of things. There's a video on adolescent drug use. And I wanted you guys to check in on that as we finish the Paris Hilton stuff and some of the videos from there. So, because these are some things that still come up as you are growing up and see some of the challenges that come with youth addiction and treatment This was a program that I saw that was good. It's called The Last Door. It's supposed to be like that last house on the block that I wanted you guys to watch. And it's an adolescent treatment program. So this could be anybody from like 15 all the way up until the age of 25, even 29 nowadays. And some of the things they do for addiction recovery, and then this kid's story of overcoming addictions that you can watch here. So I'll get you started on that.
My name is Nathan. I grew up on the North Shore. I'm 17 years old. Some of the things that I like about Vancouver is just the community that I've been able to build here, and some of the friends that I've met, whether that's just in the community of North Van or in the community of New West through the youth door and through the adult door. I started using drugs when I was about 15 years old. I was enrolled in high school before I went to treatment. I actually made it about halfway through grade 10 before, my addiction kind of took over my life and I stopped attending school. But I'm currently enrolled in grade 12 and, I'm right on course to graduate with, grades that even surprised me. So it was a challenge for me, especially even grade 7 before high school was a challenge, and just finding friends and finding like a group that I felt comfortable with was a challenge. And I believe that's why like I turned to drugs when I did, is because it gave me that community and that instant group of people that I felt I could trust and be myself around. I definitely believe that when I began to use it, it wasn't, because I wanted to hurt anybody. It was just because, I saw people around me doing it, and, I saw the group of friends that I could have that fast just by using drugs. And, I didn't really foresee what it turned into. My parents obviously didn't support, my decision to stop attending school. They tried to find me, and looking back on it now, I put them in a lot of dangerous situations and situations that I don't feel very good about putting them in. And it was definitely hard for them, I think, to watch their son from being such a bright kid to using drugs every day and just having a lack of consideration for himself and people around him. As my addiction progressed, even up until the day that I went to the youth door, I still didn't believe that it was an issue. I believed that, I couldn't stop using. Like I knew that like, in some aspect of my life, I was gonna just use for the rest of my life, but I didn't think it was a problem the way my parents did. I didn't see the unmanageability. I just saw it as, hey, I use drugs every day, and that's just how it is. I didn't have the outlook that my parents had. Most days, I got up, I right away just texted my using friends and started planning, when we were going to use, whether that was at whose house or how we were going to get money or what was I going to have to like steal or sell to get money to use. And I thought that was pretty normal, to be completely honest. Not until I got clean did I see that, regular kids in high school aren't doing those things. Regular kids are getting up and going to school. They're not looking for some way to find $40. What happened for, my mom to get the leverage she needed, because I actually came for a program viewing of the youth door probably about 4 months before I actually went there. And, I met with Peter and I met with all the staff there, and they were really nice. But like I said before, I didn't think there was an issue, and there was nothing that was actually forcing me to go. The consequences weren't bad enough for me to just want to go. So, within that 4 months between the program viewing and when I actually went, I actually ended up getting arrested. I went to court, and on my court order, my mom talked to my PO and got attending and completing the last door youth program put onto my probation order. And so that was what first brought me into the youth store. When I found out my mom was, I kept school, but inside I was choked. Like I was so mad. I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do my 90 days, and I'm just gonna go right back to it, and it'll just be nothing. And I'll show my mom that I don't have a problem. I can do my thing. About 60 days in, I was sitting around the dinner table talking to Peter, and Peter was like, "So Nathan, how do you like the program so far?" And I'm like, "Oh well, it's pretty good, but I only got 30 days left, so it's not too bad." And he's like, "Well, on your probation order, it says you must complete the program, and you're only on step 2. And at that moment, I realized, well, I'm gonna be here for all 12 steps, so I'm gonna just like try it, I guess. What else am I gonna do? Just sit here and wait now? So yeah, that's when I started like seeing that, I wasn't gonna lie and manipulate my way out of it. I actually had to put pen to paper and start writing. Over time, in the youth store, I began to, connect with some things that I had done before I started using, mainly mountain biking with one of the staff members that works at the youth store. And that was something that, I didn't think I was ever gonna, get back into, just because my using wasn't really allowing it. And through that, I kind of looked at some of the other goals that I'd had in life before I started using, and then I looked at how has using, brought me closer to those goals. And every single time, I had a goal and I used, it put me in the opposite direction of that goal. And whether that was, to have a good relationship with my family and especially my younger brother, using never benefited that ever in my life. There's not a single situation I could think of. And that was, I think, the pivotal shift, when I was in treatment was what life do I want for myself beyond just the phase where everybody's in high school partying? Because, when I wasn't a regular partier, that's what I thought I was, and that's what I told my mom I was. But, I looked at how I used, and I looked at how other kids, like, experimented, and I was not like that. I used as much as I could and as long as I could, and that's not what regular people do. My relationship with my parents pretty much took like a 180-degree turn by the time, I moved home after treatment, because before treatment, they were pretty much ready to say, if you don't stop using, you're going to be living on the streets because we don't want you in our life, and we have to protect your younger brother from, the harm that you're going to cause and have already caused in his life. To a place where, when I was leaving treatment, my parents actually welcomed me back into their home, let me be a part of their life and their family, and start to rebuild those connections. And now I feel closer than I felt with my parents before I started using, and that's something I didn't think I could ever like have. Some things I say, when I hear about people struggling, or when I have other people, reach out to me and ask, like what was it for me that made me decide that I wanted to change my life. And I think for me, coming to treatment was something that I had to do. I didn't really think at my age I could have done it without, being put in a place where, I was safe, and I felt like I could open up with the guys around me. But the most important thing for me was finding a friend group and finding people that I felt comfortable with. And because that's what I craved in addiction, and that's what I thought I had found by using drugs. But once I found it when I was clean, I realized there's a lot more value in having friendships that are clean, because I looked at my friends that I used with, and it was always, how how am I going to get something from them? Or, I don't know what they were thinking, but if they were anything like me, they were probably thinking, how can I get something from this kid? And, those aren't friendships that are going to last. Those aren't friendships that, you can tell anything to. And, the best thing about recovery for me is honestly, each and every day that I'm clean, I feel better about myself and about who I am in people's lives, because as I started using, I used and I saw the harm I was causing, and it made me feel guilty. So I used more, and I kind of just dug myself into this deep, deep hole. And through being clean, I think I've broken ground zero with those feelings, and now it's just getting better. And I feel good about school. I feel good about my family, and I just feel good about who I am and who I'm going to be in the future. The one thing I would say to people who think that they're going to be missing out, because that's what I thought when I had to go to the youth store. I'm like, 90 days, man, that's so long. Like, so much stuff is going to happen. I'm not going to be able to be there. And I was talking to a sponsor, and he told me, let's look at your whole life, or even just the time you've been alive. And that was, at that point, it was 16 years. What's 90 days out of 16 years? Like, that's a fraction of your life. And even more so, like, your life that's like, like 85 years long. Like, 90 days is nothing. And to be able to just, put an effort in for that 90 days, you can have the rest of your life to, get better and achieve goals. And, once you find a friend group, like I was saying earlier, those feelings of recovery being boring kind of disappear because you have friends. Because when I came, I thought I was going to have to, like, do it all alone. Just, like, sit in my own house, just all by myself. Oh, I gotta stay clean. So, yeah. My name is Nathan. I'll have 18 months on the 22nd. And at this point in my life, I wouldn't have it any other way.
So as you see, early recovery is a critical part. There's a lot of stuff on early recovery and folks getting sober early, sometimes even before they're 21. And that's what this guy kind of covers. His name is David. About early recovery, that also the family dynamics are an important part, and that's, our stuff.
Suffice to talk about early recovery comes from different perspectives. Again, because it's personal, early recovery as a person in recovery, early recovery as a parent in recovery, early recovery in the sense of my kids' early recovery. I remember when my dog.
So we'll get into that one later, but I wanted to download this and transition from there into the young adulthood. So, technically some of you could already be there. As I mentioned, early adulthood also is now covering more years. So, and that's because we're living longer. So with young adulthood, and this is chapter 8, there's a lot of stuff going on. There is the space where you might actually be developmentally an adult, but still like physically adult, but still kind of an adolescent. So it starts off asking, when have you reached adulthood? And that would be, either age or socio and economic factors. So, for example, a lot of folks actually, when you were 17 years ago, and they still might let you do this, they signed you were allowed to sign up for the military. I think you had to have your parents sign up, but you're using your body to work out in the field, and therefore you are like self-supporting. So that's the economic factors. The social factors might be that you're in college and you're paying for yourself. Your parents cut you off at 18. There's also, as you see here on the slide, adulthood versus extended adolescence. Some of you might have that going on. Maybe your parents pay for your college. Maybe you still take out student loans, but your parents are helping you out and even claim you on their taxes. And you can choose to do, if you want to go party every single night and do what you want 5 days a week, that's an option. If you want to blow off school and go when you want, it's an option that, luckily the colleges intervene before you do that too long. I think you're only allowed like 1 or 2 semesters of 1.9 or below, because you'll get on academic probation and then having to get a job. So the real world enters in. Erickson also talks about turning outward and focusing on relationships with others. So the developmental stage is intimacy versus isolation. And again, learning how to date people, learning, looking for your soulmate. You may marry somebody you meet in college. You may already be married. So there's lots of different developmental themes going on here. And especially nowadays, if you do a search on the internet, there's a ton of stuff about these multi-generational households. We look more like Italy than we do the America of the 1990s and early 2000s, where like everybody was encouraged to live on their own and go out on your own. You could afford an apartment by yourself. Now there's a lot more roommate situations, people living in multi-generational homes. You may have your parents there, your grandparents there, even great-grandparents. So those are a lot of themes and a lot of stuff going on. We'll get into it more next time. The 2 critical developmental tasks, though, in adulthood, and this can help you determine for yourself if you're there yet. Economic independence. So again, if you're paying for everything on your own, you're taking out student loans, you don't get any help from your parents. The student loans pay for your housing here or your apartment and your schooling, and you also work a job. Your parents don't claim you on your taxes. And also that independent decision making. You can choose to blow off school and not even go. Just maybe you make more working somewhere else. You already got a place 15 to 20 an hour, and you found out the average American salary is like around 30-some thousand a year. So you're happy to do it without all the college debt or whatever it might be. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of decisions to be made. In the past, you could get a GED and survive on your own without a college degree. Nowadays, only about 35% of Americans have a college degree, so 1/3 have it. It does allow you better negotiating power with jobs. Before that, unless if you went to a trade school and learned a trade, there's less to negotiate with. You say, I've got my GED or a high school diploma, and then this trade that I've learned. With a college degree, you can put that on your resume, and it's a good, helpful thing to have. So lots of different developmental themes. I want to talk about this one by Arnett, the theorist, and also Erickson the next time. So emerging adulthood is a distinct stage of development, neither adolescence nor young adulthood. That's where most of us are, because we're somewhere in between those. Like I've mentioned, you're taking out loans, but your parents are helping a little, or your parents claim you on their taxes and they let you live at home in the summer. It's also the period of exploration, excuse me. and transitioning into adult roles. So exploring love, exploring work, and then your worldviews, like seeing things, learning this stuff about developmental psychology and human behavior in the social environment and all the things that are happening now. So, and then feeling in between adolescence and adulthood. So that certainly comes up. We'll cover that next time. I'm going to give you guys your 30 minutes in person and 20 online. So some stuff to look through online for the next discussion, and we'll see you Friday.